The first time I ever stepped into Liam's house, it felt like walking into a memory that wasn't mine. The air carried the faint scent of vanilla candles and old books, and the walls were lined with photographs that looked frozen in a happier time, family trips, birthdays, a smiling couple holding a young Liam between them. But the smiles in the frames didn't match the energy in the house anymore. The laughter had faded. What remained was a silence that hummed in every corner, a quiet so heavy that you could almost feel it on your skin. Clara, Liam's mom, was the kind of woman whose gentleness felt like sunlight on a cold day. She'd greet me with a warm smile every time I came over, brushing her hair out of her tired eyes as she said, "Ethan, I'm so glad you came. Liam's upstairs, but could you help me move this box real quick?" It started as small things, lifting grocery bags, tightening a loose door hinge, fixing the squeaky gate. She always laughed it off, saying, "You're my little handyman. I'll just pretend you're physically helping me so I don't feel so useless." But I could tell even then that it wasn't just about moving things around the house. She needed company. She needed presence. Liam's father worked overseas, and although he sent money and called sometimes, his absence hung over their family like a shadow. Clara did her best to hide it, dressing neatly, keeping the house spotless, cooking meals that smelled like comfort itself. Yet when she thought no one was looking, her smile would drop, her shoulders would sag, and she'd stand at the kitchen sink, staring out the window, as if waiting for something or someone to return. I started helping her more often, even when Liam wasn't around. Sometimes she'd hand me a broom or a rag and say with a teasing grin, "You're earning your dinner tonight." But behind her jokes, there was always that undertone of gratitude, of quiet relief that she wasn't alone for a few hours. The way she spoke carried both warmth and exhaustion, the kind that comes from years of holding everything together. I noticed how her hands trembled slightly when she handed me a cup of tea, how her laughter sometimes broke halfway through a sentence. One afternoon, I found her trying to move a heavy dresser by herself. I rushed over, telling her she'd hurt her back. She chuckled, brushing off the moment. "It's fine, Ethan. I'll just pretend you're physically helping me. That way I don't feel weak." The words sounded light, but her voice cracked on the last word. That was the first time I saw her eyes well up, not from pain, but from something deeper. I didn't know how to respond, so I just kept helping in silence. Outside, the sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting long, soft lines across the floor, and for a moment, it felt like both of us were pretending that everything inside that house was still okay. As the weeks passed, Clara began to rely on me more, not in ways that seemed unusual at first, but in small, subtle moments that started to linger. She would wait for me to stop by after school, even if Liam wasn't home yet. "Oh, good, you're here," she'd say, her voice lighter than usual. "Can you help me move some boxes from the attic?" Or the shelf came loose again. It became a quiet routine, me showing up, helping her with things around the house, sharing a cup of tea afterward. She'd tell stories from her past while I listened, her words carrying the warmth of someone who hadn't been listened to in a long time. Sometimes, while we worked, she'd talk about her dreams before life got so complicated, how she wanted to be a painter, how she loved old music, how she missed her garden before it got overrun with weeds. Her voice softened when she said these things, like she was peeling back layers of herself that she'd hidden away. I'd nod, trying to offer the kind of attention she seemed to crave, the kind that didn't judge, didn't interrupt, just understood. She'd smile, eyes glistening with something between gratitude and sorrow, and then quickly laugh it off with that familiar phrase, "I'll pretend you're just physically helping me, Ethan. That way I won't start thinking too much." One rainy afternoon, I found her sitting on the couch with a blanket draped around her shoulders, staring at the muted TV screen. The room was dim, lit only by the gray light slipping through the curtains. When she saw me, she straightened up, forcing a smile. "You always show up when I need a hand," she said softly. I told her Liam was at soccer practice, and she nodded. "He's growing up fast. Soon he won't need me at all," she murmured, her voice breaking in the middle. She tried to laugh it off, but the sound of it was thin, almost fragile. I sat down beside her, unsure what to say. She looked at me, her eyes tired yet kind, and whispered, "You remind me of how things used to be before everything felt so heavy." In that moment, the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was heavy with things neither of us could name. She wasn't asking for anything except a little company, a little humanity, but there was a pull in the air, a mix of compassion and confusion that made my chest tighten. I started to realize that her request to pretend wasn't about chores or help anymore. It was her way of masking loneliness, of hiding the ache that came from years of holding her life together without anyone noticing how much it was breaking her. Every time I left that house, her words echoed in my mind like a quiet confession. "I'll pretend you're just physically helping me." The more she said it, the more it sounded like a wish, a fragile plea to keep things simple, to not look too closely at the emptiness beneath her smile. It was sometime in late autumn when everything began to change. The leaves outside Clara's house had turned a deep rust color, and the wind carried that dry chill that made the world feel quieter. I noticed Liam had started acting distant, quieter during our hangouts, distracted when I spoke. One day, while we were in his room playing video games, he suddenly paused the screen and said, "You've been spending a lot of time with my mom lately." His tone wasn't angry, just uncertain. I froze for a second, searching for words that didn't sound defensive. "She just asks me to help around the house sometimes," I said quickly. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Yeah," he muttered, "she talks about you a lot." That night when I went home, the words echoed in my head, leaving a strange ache in my chest. The next time I went to their house, Clara seemed quieter than usual. Her eyes looked swollen, as if she hadn't slept well. I helped her carry some folded laundry to Liam's room, and she sighed, her voice trembling slightly as she said, "He's been a bit cold with me lately. Teenagers, right?" But there was something more in her tone, guilt, maybe confusion. She placed the laundry basket down and looked at me with a fragile smile. "Maybe I leaned on you too much," she said softly. It felt nice having someone around who listened." Her words cut deeper than I expected, not because they were wrong, but because they were true. I'd grown attached to, not in the way people might assume, but in a way that felt confusing, like carrying someone else's sadness until it became your own. A week later, Liam stopped inviting me over altogether. Our conversations became shorter, polite but distant. I didn't know what he had seen or heard, but something in his eyes had changed. The warmth was gone. I wanted to explain, to tell him there was nothing to hide, but the silence between us had already built a wall. One afternoon, Clara called me and thanked me for everything I'd done, her voice steady, but her words sounded like goodbye. "Take care of yourself, Ethan," she said quietly. "You've got such a kind heart. Don't let the world harden it." The line went silent before I could say anything back. Months passed before I saw them again. Liam and I crossed paths at school, exchanging a small nod that felt like both forgiveness and farewell. His mother never reached out again, and I never went back to that house with the vanilla-scented air and the fading photographs. But sometimes, when I walked past their street, I'd see the lights glowing faintly in the windows, and I'd remember her voice saying, "I'll pretend you're just physically helping me." Only now, I understood she wasn't pretending to protect herself from judgment, but to protect me from understanding how deep her loneliness really went.